And that's a live look from Chicago O'Hare Airport early in the morning as people get ready to take their first flights of the day. One of the major hubs that will see a significant reduction in flights starting today. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says the cuts to schedules across the country was made because of staffing shortages while the government shutdown drags on. Sara Nelson joins us now. She's the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants, which represents over 50,000 flight attendants across the 20 airlines. Thank you, Sara, for joining us. Of course, flight attendants are being paid during the shutdown. You're private workers, not government workers, but it takes a team, as everybody knows, and you work alongside those air traffic controllers, you work alongside the TSA officers as well. How much stress are airports and airport systems and employees under at the moment?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, but let's be really clear that this is day 38. The system broke at day 35 in 2019. And what we're seeing is that we have TSA officers on the front lines and air traffic controllers still going to work. But all of the people who help them do their jobs, the National Weather Service, other planners, the cybersecurity units, all these people in the background are all on furlough. So while we have the people on the front lines who have been forced to come to work without pay and are about to miss their second full paycheck, so it'll be 2.5 completely, are having a very difficult time coming to work. We know in safety, remove all distractions. What could be more distracting than not getting a paycheck, not knowing if you're going to be able to take care of your own families when you're trying so hard to make good on your oath to Americans and continue to take care of all of us?
When people are grumpy, which they often are when they've had long flight delays, I know they take it out on you guys. I've seen it happen. I'm so sorry that you bear the brunt of so many people's ill will and impatience. You're traveling with young kids, you're tired, you're cranky, and I know it's flight attendants who are in the front line. What do you want to see happen, Sara, now that we're getting to the point of having to cut flights at airports?
Well, I have to tell you that cutting the flights is a common strategy when there are additional risks entered into the system. We slow down the system so that we don't have a safety problem, so that we are able to mitigate those risks. But what this is doing is having a ripple effect. People are not going to be able to get their medicine. They're not going to be able to get their packages. They're not going to be able to get to their loved ones who are in pain or are dying. The economy is going to slow. Flight attendants will be affected as well. But what we're seeing is that when people are coming to the airport during a shutdown, unlike during an IT meltdown or some other disruption to aviation, they're actually coming with quite a bit of solidarity in their hearts. They're telling the TSA agents, thank you. They're officers. They're trying to figure out how they can get a message to the air traffic controllers to thank them. Americans really come together in a moment of crisis, and it is outrageous that the people who are still getting paid on Capitol Hill are not coming together to solve this problem. This is a very simple solution. Open the government and extend those subsidies. It is 2 issues, 2 crises, 1 vote.
Sara, it's Sam Stein here. I was going to ask you about this. I mean, the 10% reduction in flights seems like a kind of a mitigating effort to try to at least not cause severe damage. But let's say in theory they don't come to a resolution. They don't open the government in the next 2 weeks, for instance. And it's frankly probably going to end up that way. What are the next steps that you imagine are going to be taken to help alleviate some of the issues at the airports?
Look, they're going to have to keep cutting back. We look at this all the time. When there's not enough staffing, they essentially have to take a 5-lane highway in the air and move that down to a 2-lane street. And so that really slows everything down. So what we're seeing in the 10% reduction of flights is a proactive measure to try to mitigate risk. But at a certain point, we have heroes who are coming to work every day to keep this system going, air traffic controllers and TSA officers, and they are heroes, but they're humans. And humans will break at a certain point when they can no longer put a tank of gas in their car, when they can no longer get a meal to eat, when they can no longer buy their own insulin to take care of themselves or their families. These issues will come to a head, and there is not another 2 weeks to go on. It's simply unsustainable.
And Sara, to that point, if this does extend a couple more weeks, we're barely into Thanksgiving. Busiest travel days of the year, and then, of course, Christmas beyond that, if this really stretches on. Just underscore for those watching, if as you predict, reductions only increase in the weeks ahead, what will those holidays look like?
People, if they allow this to go on, which I don't think that they will, I think the moment that the planes stop is definitely when there is a resolution here. But if that happens, people are not going to have their holidays. They're not going to get to their loved ones. And that's what we're looking at here. This is urgent right now to fix today. And how can we allow ourselves to expect people to come to work for free for 38 days now? We don't do that anywhere in the private sector. These companies would be sued. On the first day of a bankruptcy, the very first order on a bankruptcy is to pay the workers, because we understand that you cannot operate a business without paying people for coming to work. So this is urgent. Congress has got to pass this today, and it's very, very simple. This is not difficult negotiations. Extend the subsidies and open the government.
International President of the Association of Flight Attendants, Sara Nelson. Sara, thank you.
Thank you.
So, Donnie, I tend to agree, excuse me, that the looming holidays you'd think would be a tripwire. That everyone in Washington would be like, we can't let this persist until then. That said, like, there's been bad optics all along. They seem nowhere near a deal.
Yeah. If the Democrats were smart, they would start to create what I call shutdown stories and start to show how it's real. Because, you know, we infected. Talk about, you know, show somebody, a woman who's lost her SNAP benefits, or she can't feed her kids. Show somebody that's been standing in an airport for 14 hours. Obviously, you can't put those two. One is much more extreme than the other. But really start to put human faces on what's happening. But I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I think Trump's going to step in the next week or so. He's got to, because this is really, the optics are really going to start to get really, really bad.
Yeah, and Caddy, he does know that. Like, as I reported privately, he understands this is bad for him, bad for Republicans. He's been disengaged with foreign affairs, with the ballroom, but he's looking at polls. He sees how he's coming up on the short end of this, but you know, he still will have to get in that room at some point to make a deal.
Yeah, no one wants to be blamed for a ruined Thanksgiving, right? I'm sure he'll focus on that too. Okay, coming up.